Hey everybody, it's Curse, and today I'm going to bless you with a Lich, Hungering Souls Ignite, Curse of Perseverance Unique Staff build guide. As you can see from the Julra video, we maintain over 1,000 stacks of Ignite on Julra for most of the fight. And if you slow it down, you'll notice we apply about 160-170 stacks with every single cast of Hungering Souls. So the build is pretty hilarious. Unfortunately, the Curse of Perseverance staff got hit by a last minute nerf before 0.9 came out, but that's alright. I still took it to close to the end game limit just to see what it's capable of. And the build itself is very visually impressive. You've got hundreds of Hungering Souls flying around and it's pretty satisfying. Even though the Julra kill is not up to my standards, the build is still quite strong in monoliths just because we're running 2 mobility skills. So you can just zoom through every single monolith and farm up fairly quickly. I don't think I would recommend this build for season starters though. It does take quite a few items to kick in, but it's still a fun build to try. So if you get a chance, do it. So let's jump into the build guide. Irashaimase. Alright, let's go over the skills for the build. So by default you have 5 Hungering Souls. You can make that 9 with this node, reduce the mana cost with this one, and then this node is now decent for this build specifically because every single point in this node translates to an expected value of 1.2 extra Hungering Souls. So you can think of that as approximately 10 to 15% more damage, but it's a much higher percentage of the increase in the coolness factor for the build. You really want to be running 15 souls per cast and not 9. It's just so much better with 15. And then you want to get Descent into Madness for basically double damage on our ignites. And the next priority should be Unholy Trinity. This node is just so good and unfortunately so annoying to play around. So make sure to get 3 points into it and have 3 minions at all time. I purposefully avoided going through the Forbidden Pact node just so I don't drop my projectiles by 2. Because that's a huge DPS decrease. You don't want to get this node. And finally I put 1 point into Soul Catcher just to get that mana cost a little bit more manageable. If you don't have the extra 3 points in Hungering Souls from your helmet, just drop 1 from Soul Swarm and then 1 of Reaper's Gaze and then 1 of Soul Catcher. That's going to bring you down to 20. Next with Teleport, it's fairly straightforward. We get our Bone Armor, we get Cast Speed, Cooldown Speed Recovery, and we get some Haste and Frenzy for more cast speed and more mobility. And then I ended up getting Bone Curse, but it's not a big benefit to the build, I don't think. For Reaper form, we get the cast speed. That's a must-have. And then we enable the use of Transplant as well in parallel. Max out the Reap cooldown recovery speed. And then the Reap kill threshold. We need this for bosses. And 18% is now the highest, since they nerfed the Transplant 15% instead of 20. So make sure to max that one. And then get a couple of points in Haunting. You don't need 3 because we're proccing so many hits. We're going to be getting marked for death easily. And that's it for Reaper form. For Death Seal, it's also pretty straightforward. Get your Deadlock. Make sure to get your Moratorium, so your duration maxed out. And then get Hungering Souls. More Hungering Souls. 0.9 introduced it so that sometimes you cast multiple ones as well. So we benefit from our 15 Hungering Souls per cast. And then we get our Death Waves as well. It's a nice AoE clear just because the Hungering Souls sometimes just all slam into a single enemy and vanish while your ignites kill that enemy slowly. And finally Soul Feast. Because we're proccing so many hits, if we just spec a little bit into poison, we get to use Toxic Craving and get quite a bit of armor from it. Otherwise, this build is just too fragile. It's too much of a glass cannon. So make sure to get this Toxic Craving in combination with some poison chance on hit from your items. Otherwise, for Soul Feast, get some damage, some mana efficiency, and make sure to get the Grand Imprint because we're not proccing any curses. So you want this node for your Soul Feast to be applicable. And now let's go through the items. So there are 3 core items for this build. The first one is the Curse of Perseverance Staff. And this is how we make our Hungering Souls all hit the same target. Unfortunately, they added this little part where it says they deal 63% less damage. And that applies to the ignites as well. But it's still a really fun staff to try out. So let's check it out. I tried making the staff work for damned on hit as well, but it was way weaker. Ignite is definitely better. You can see I got tier 7 cast speed in it, and the perfect rolls and damage over time and ignite on hit. So this is pretty much the perfect staff for playing ignite Hungering Souls with. The second core item is this relic Soulfire, because it gives us so much ignite, gives us armor while ignited, and we're going to be ignited all the time thanks to our belt. And it makes it so that Hungering Souls ignite on hit instead of possessing. That's how we get our ignites so high. The item also has a very low effective level for legendary potential, so it can spawn with 2 or 3 fairly easily. You can see I have a tier 7 endurance in it, just to get my endurance up to 60%. You always want elemental damage over time. It's a really good prefix whenever you can get it on these ignite builds. And then the third core item is Calamity. Again, lots of ignite, fire spell cast speed, good fire damage, and I socketed it with Hungering Souls and some armor and health regen. But yeah, this one is the least important out of the 3. Next, I would really recommend getting on the Emulators Oblation belt. It increases your ignite duration by 15 or 16%. And that's pretty much 15 or 16% more damage. Gives you Frenzy. It gives you ignite on your heroes so that you can trigger your 100% extra armor from Soulfire. And it boosts the spell damage from your souls as well. And since you're casting like hundreds of them, it works decently well. This ring is absolutely amazing for the build. 13% cast speed, 70 to 75% ignite on hit, fire damage over time, fire damage in the base item. Perfect ring for the build from an offensive capability standpoint. Defensively, it's not that great, so you have to make sure to get your resistances maxed out, your critical strike avoidance maxed out from all your other items. These boots are perfect for the build as well, so I would say they're semi-core. The 30% fire penetration with ignite is pretty much 30% more damage if you don't have any other sources of fire penetration. And then it gives you some fire damage. These are really solid builds to use on an ignite build. I'm using Titan Heart as well for the 15% less damage taken when wielding a two-handed melee weapon, and we're using a staff, so that applies. The crit chance is not really that relevant here, but this is the Titan Heart I had. The health increase up to 40% is significant as well. The you don't regenerate health can be a little bit annoying. Like you can see, I'm sitting at 0 health right now, but you can learn to manage it. And then for the rest of the items, get a frailty on hit, cast speed, elemental damage over time, max out your crit, avoid your res, a little bit of mana regen doesn't hurt, and ignite on hit on the amulet if you can get it. So yeah, you can see my res are maxed out except for poison. My crit strike avoid is maxed, my endurance is maxed. I wish I could get a little bit more endurance threshold. That would be ideal, I think. At least 600 or so. And my armor is decent. Once I activate this boost, it goes even higher. And you want flat armor because it gets multiplied by this 100% increased armor from Soulfire, as well as the percent increase from your Soul Feast bonus when it eats up poison from the enemies. And now in terms of idols, I would recommend grabbing 2 of these ornate bone idols that give you extra Hungering Souls projectiles. For example, this one, the expected value is about 1.5 Hungering Souls per cast, and that's 10 to 15% more damage. So I grabbed 2 of them. I also want poison chance on hit so that we can eat that with Soul Feast and get our armor up. So that's why I'm getting that in this ornate idol, as well as in this large idol. 22% poison chance on spell hit. I think that's pretty much my sources of poison chance, and it still stacks quite a few. Everything else is just to get my resistances maxed out. For blessings, you have to get the ignite on hit here. I opted for lightning resistance in this blessing. Crit strike avoid, physical resistance is optimal here, and flat armor in this one. It would be nice if we could also have the fire resistance shred. I think it's also from Spirits of Fire, but I think flat armor is better just because of the percent armor bonuses that we get. Without this flat armor, we won't have enough armor to get high percent damage reduction. And now let's look at the passives. Make sure to get your armor. We want to get a little bit of minion health just to make our vanguards more survivable. So make sure to get 2 points in this vanguard skill node. Otherwise you won't trigger your extra damage from your Hungering Souls. Everything else is fairly straightforward. So for the skill rotation, you just activate all your buffs. cast Soul Feast every now and then. It's pretty straightforward. And remember, this damage gets multiplied by 4 when we have 3 skeletons up. So it's close to 1,000,000 ticks once you get all your stacks of Ignite. And you can see we can manage easily up to 1,000 stacks. Again, I would not recommend this build for season starters, but an alternative way to set it up, if you happen to get Aaron's Well, the new unique chest piece that allows you to have multiple Bone Golems at one time, you could replace Transplant with Bone Golem and run 3 of them exactly. Spec them into full tankiness through this node, 5 points, and then even give them hunger just so they can heal themselves a little bit, and fire resistances, just anything to help them stay alive. Make it so they give each other armor. So yeah, run 3 Bone Golems, make them tank up to the max, and then you don't need to worry about this annoying Unholy Trinity node. But you're sacrificing Transplant. It's not the end of the world. I think it would be worth it just to have that reliability around Unholy Trinity. And the one thing I am missing in the build is a source of minion health regen per second. I think I had it on this helmet together with the Hungering Souls, but it didn't socket in that exact prefix. And now check out some Corruption 300 Monolith. The build runs Corruption 300-400 Monoliths really well. I think past 400 it will struggle, but all in all the build is decent enough. However, I do feel like EHG over nerfed the staff a little bit. Given how many high legendary potential items socketed with tier 7 strong affixes I have in this character, it just does not perform as well as I thought it would when it comes to killing Julra. But it's still a pretty fun playstyle. So if you like Lich and you haven't tried it out, definitely give it a whirl. I've been thinking of putting together a tier list for all the builds that I've done so far. Tier S being the highest, like my Bone Golem build, definitely S tier. In a list like that, I would put this Hungering Souls Ignite Curse of Perseverance build around B tier. It performs really well in Monoliths and probably Arena as well, but Julra and other bosses are struggle city. Anyway, not every build can be S tier. If everything was S tier, tier list wouldn't exist. So hopefully I get around to doing that soon. And now for some other updates. I did manage to build my PC over the week. I'm sporting a brand new RTX 4090. It was a bit of a hassle to get it installed, to be honest with you. There's a well-known issue with the RTX 4000s. As soon as you update the NVIDIA drivers, you just get black screen and black screen after restart. Your computer is just impossible to use. And then you uninstall the drivers, you're good to go again. So I ended up returning one 4090, got the same thing with the second one, and eventually managed to fix it by updating the BIOS on my motherboard. So PSA, if you're running into issues like that, or you know somebody who is, tell them to look up the motherboard BIOS updates, patch notes essentially, on their motherboard manufacturer's website. Eventually I got it to work and now everything runs smoothly. It's awesome. I should be getting a 4K monitor soon as well. So hopefully the next video is going to be in 4K. So if you like this build, or if you want to see more Last Epoch, Diablo, and maybe other game content in ultra high definition, like, subscribe, and on that note, we just hit 500 subs today, so thank you everybody. I'm more motivated than ever to keep posting builds and trying things out in the game, so let's keep going on this journey together. And I've been thinking if I manage to get to 1,000 subs, that'd be pretty special for me. So as a thank you, I'm trying to figure out what would be the best thing to do. Maybe a stream, maybe an intro video where I talk about my origin story, how I ended up doing video editing after I broke my leg, and even going way back on some of the first games that I truly enjoyed and got immersed into. Join my Discord and come share if you have any thoughts or recommendations. But I'll definitely do something, just haven't figured out what yet. Anyway, let's keep testing builds out. I'm really excited to try a few more different things across different characters, so hopefully at least one of them is a more successful build. The first thing I tried, and I really wanted to make it work, was Inferno Shades, but oh man, dude, they suck. So I had to scrap that, and that's how I landed on Lich, Hungering Souls. So we'll see what I land on next. Anyway, take it easy. Kuchiso samadeshta.